Now we shall explore the various ethical theories that determine the design of our social welfare function. There is a spectrum of distributive justice theories, which for our purposes will be divided into the 5 following categories: Libertarianism, Utilitarianism, Maximin, Egalitarianism, and Weighted Utilitarianism. The first is called Libertarianism. This school of thought is opposing all redistribution, which is beyond what is justified on efficiency grounds. They refuse to promote redistribution unless it increases efficiency. Libertarianism is not relevant to our discussion, as we have already assumed that the individuals care about equality and want the government to promote it. Second is utilitarianism. Under this category, redistribution is needed as long as it maximizes the sum of individuals' utilities, or happiness, as we say in this course. Utilitarianism is based on the following thought experiment. Imagine that you are in an original position, which means that you are asked to choose the social welfare function for the society you are going to be a member of. And imagine that you are sitting behind a veil of ignorance, which means that you do not know what will be your place in society. Namely, you have an equal chance of being any member of the society for which you choose the social welfare function. You can end up being rich or poor. Let's assume that you care only about your own utility, namely happiness, and you wish to maximize it. In this case, you do not know what would be your position in society. Maximizing the society as a whole, meaning the aggregate happiness, would be your optimal choice, right? Since by choosing to maximize the sum of individuals' happiness, you maximize your expected happiness, you maximize your chance of being better off. This was noted and proved mathematically by Vickrey and Harsanyi. Now, the more individuals are in our society, the greater is the sum of their utilities. Hence, social welfare function increases. However, we do not think that the size of society is relevant to its happiness. We therefore avoid this implication by using the average level of utility instead of the sum, as in the following formula. N is the number of people in society. As we can see in this formula, W is the social welfare, which is the sum of individuals' utilities, divided by the number of people. It is important to note that utilitarianism focuses on the margin of each individual's utility. For example, on how an additional dollar allocated to an individual would affect his or her happiness. It does not call for redistribution across utility levels. Namely, it does not call for redistribution from individuals with high utility levels to those with lower utility levels. Or in our words, it does not call for distribution from happy to miserable people. Since we're thinking of government policies that redistribute income, utilitarianism calls for taking money from people who generate relatively little happiness from their last dollars, the marginal dollars, to people who derive much happiness from those dollars redistributed to them. It does not matter how happy the individuals are, the level of their happiness. The only thing that matters is how much happiness they derive from their last dollars, that is, from their marginal income. It is possible that a relatively unhappy person that also generates relatively little happiness from his marginal income will be required to transfer income to a relatively happy person who happens to derive relatively more happiness from his marginal income, because doing so would increase the aggregate happiness in society. We talked about it in the previous class when discussing the notion of happiness related to the experiencing self. Consumption increases this type of happiness. Suppose, for example, that you have 10 pairs of shoes and that you really like shoes. Your neighbor has only 3. He does not care as much as you do about shoes. Having shoes adds on little to his happiness. So if a utilitarian has a brand new pair of shoes to give, who do you think he would give it to? I'm sure you're happy to hear that he would give it to you. To sum up, under utilitarianism, the government should redistribute resources from individuals whose marginal utility of these resources is low to individuals whose marginal utility of the resources is high. Redistribution would end when the marginal happiness of all individuals in society is the same. This does not mean that their happiness levels will be the same. It only means that through redistribution, the government cannot further increase the aggregate happiness in society, which is the same as saying that the average happiness is as high as possible.